previous tutorial, we made the base of the turret gun, as you can see. And in this tutorial, we're going to use extrusion modeling again. But this time, we're going to use a different base shape to start from. And we're going to create this top piece with the impression of a gun. So obviously, this is looking quite primitive in its form and kind of detail in comparison to the base. But if we were had a bit more time, was going to be a bit more fuller, we could probably turn it into something similar to this with a little bit more detailing in, and so on. So this was just another piece that I've made before. So we have future kind of options there in terms of adding more in. So if I just go back and hide this group, which is this one, sorry. So, right. So, with our scene, you should have your turret base in. What I want you to do is just hide your base by clicking on the object, go into the channel box, and pushing on visibility 0 key or 0 value, and pushing enter, and it will hide it away. So, for our gun, we are going to use a prism to start, but as you'll note, the prism shape is not on the kind of shelf in the default kind of shapes tool. So we're going to go to create, polygon primitives, and again if I push this bar here, we allow the menus to pop out, and I'm going to create a prism. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is rotate this 90 degrees. So with the object selected, I'm just going to click on here, and it's rotate Z. If I push 90 degrees, it's going to rotate around. I'm just going to change the name. I'm just going to call this turret gun because this is like my third one in the scene. I'm going to put 3 next to it, but for you it should be number 2. So with this shape, we kind of want it to fill out the mass. So we know that our base is kind of around this size. So we kind of want the gun to kind of be around that. So I'm going to go into the inputs. Remember, I've got the channel box selected at the right. And if I go down to the inputs, I'm just going to take the length. I'm going to take that to about 20. And I'm then going to put in the side length up to about, maybe 2.2, I think 2.242, I think this will be fine. And I'm going to give it, we don't want the sides, we're going to give it 3 subdivisions. In fact, no, we'll come back to subdivisions because I'll show you some other ways of doing it. And we can add in a cap at the end, like so. But for the sake of what we're doing, no, in fact, actually, we'll leave it there. We'll put it in there. We'll put it in there. So, with that done, what we're going to do is push the W key. So remember, Q is select, W is translate, E is rotate, and R is scale. So with W, I'm going to select, I'm going to go onto here, I'm going to click the red arrow, which will keep it only on that parameter to move, and I'm then going to select underneath here. I'm going to go into component mode, and I'm going to, by holding down the right mouse button, I'm going to go into face. I'm going to select that bottom piece there, but I'm going to push Control E, or I can go to Edit Mesh, and I can go to Extrude, and then from that, I'm just going to put it down slightly, like so. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I want to add in some cuts. So remember, I did just do that on the previous settings, but should you start making a model and realize later on that actually I want to kind of add in some more edges, if we go to Mesh Tools, we can go to Insert Edge Loop. So I'm just going to bring this up here, and if I go to Insert Edge Loop, and I can then click and drag, and with the left mouse button, and once I'm kind of happy with the placement, I can let go. So I'm just going to kind of set it like that. Okay, so roughly about, I'm just going to run and roughly split it. I'm just going to push Control Z and do it. I just want to bring them a little bit more. Okay, so I've got 3 separate segments, like so. So the next thing I'm going to do is go back into the face mode, by holding down the right mouse button and going to face. I'm going to select these three, and I'm going to push Control E. And with this selected, I'll start putting it in. But obviously I can't actually see what I'm doing on the inside, which can be quite frustrating. However, if I click on this section here, you will see that I can now see through. I can kind of bring that in. I'm just going to take it to just before this second area here, like so. So if I go back to shading mode by clicking on this button here, the shortcuts for these are 4 and 6. Okay, so 5 doesn't do too much from what I can see. So if we do 5, so it's 4 and 5. Okay, so we can now kind of see that we've got an impression of a gun. So our gun's barrel, sorry. So with regards to the next part, what we're going to do is I'm going to hold down the right mouse button, go to face again, and I'm going to select these two faces, and I can do that by pushing shift. Now what I don't want to do is select any on the other side, and the reason for that I'll show you. If I select all 4, do Control E, which is the extrude, and I start bringing these things in, you know, I'm getting all this kind of horrible looking bits, and actually I just want to create a frame around each part. So again, the gun's gonna look pretty weird, like with the barrel like that. So if I just undo by pushing Control Z, and I've got that there, and I push Control E, and I'm just going to select this square up here. So it's scale. I'm just going to bring that in. I want to try and keep that frame equal. So I'm just going to do the red and green individually to kind of get them roughly kind of sitting right on the frame. But I'm going to push Control E, and then with the blue arrow, not the square, the blue arrow, I'm just going to pull that in slightly, like so. If I go too far, you're going to see that black bit there is the barrel, as you can see. So I've just got to be careful bringing that in. Okay. So on the other side, I'm going to do the same thing. Now remember that if I push Control E, okay, and obviously you know I'll bring it in, and I think later on, oh, I've made a mistake. I need to go back and I do Control Z. So you're going to think, great, it's gone, it's undone. But actually, it's not. If you look on this side, you can see we've actually still got this circular ring in. So if I just select this to show you and push 1, sorry, on the keyboard, you can on the top key, you can see that actually it's still there. It's just hidden in between, which is going to cause a problem. So when you are undoing extrusions, if you are unsure if it's gone, push 3 and have a look. So if I undo again, you'll see in a second. So undo enough stages. There you go. Now it's disappeared. So I'm going to push Control E again, and then I'm just going to do the same thing. Except this time I'm just going to go in wireframe mode just to try and get that a little bit accurate with the one we made previously. Kind of get a rough feel for it. So if we actually come into front view, we might be able to see. If I push F, okay, so let's go to side view. So I'm going to go panels, orthographic, side view, and if we push F, we can see. So if I bring that in, you can see that actually we're still a little bit bigger. So I'm just going to take that in slightly. It's a bit of guesswork at this point, I'm afraid. So we're roughly there now. So I'm just going to take that up a little touch, like so. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. And then if we go back into the side, front view, sorry, the front and side obviously a bit back to front here. Oh, it's on the wrong thing. There we go. And I'll bring that in. Okay. It's still a little bit shorter. So I want to get it just there. There we go. Okay. So if we go back to there, and if we push 5, we'll go back to shaded. And you kind of see it's roughly right. Obviously, what we could do later on is actually just cut this in half and duplicate it. But we kind of, as this is an introductory kind of session, we won't be doing that this time. So I'm just going to take that down again. If we go to the side view, because of the way this has been positioned, and we kind of go in, you can kind of see where we're getting this kind of overlap happening. So what we want to do is actually take this down here, and then what we're going to do is actually go onto the other side and just pull that back out slightly. So if I just go to perspective view for 1 second and take the other faces, if we go into front, no, I want side, sorry, orthographic side, and if I push W, I can then kind of just move that in a little, okay. And I'm just going to actually move these vertexes down here. I'm actually just going to kind of pull them up a little bit more. Just bring that in. As you can see, this is really disrupting the consistency of the model. So you just got to be really careful with it. You don't want to be too destructive. Okay. And if we go back to perspective, go to shaded mode, we should now have those two elements inside. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is actually extrude out from this middle bit. So what I'm going to do is go to face mode, and I'm actually going to want to select all four of these, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that's both sides, the bottom and the front. I'm then going to push Control E and push in the square at the top. I'm then going to go to square in the middle. I'm just going to scale all of it in. Now, what I like about this and doing it in this component view of the tool is it gets really nice angled part underneath the barrel, which gives it kind of like a kind of really intimidating and sci-fi feel to it. So we think about the design elements here as well. And then from that, I'm going to select the front face. I'm going to push Control E. I'm going to go to Scale tool. I'm going to scale that in. And then from there, I'm going to push Control E again. So you can get used to this idea of double extruding. Now, if we push in, we've got an issue because we're in component view or local view. So on a tool, so if we flip here and go to global, we should now be able to bring that in. And we can kind of bring that in there. So if I now go back to shaded view, you will see that we've got a nice kind of vent coming from underneath the front of the button. Okay, so the next stage that we're going to do is actually do the back, but this time rather than going in, we're going to bring it outwards. So I'm going to go on the back and push Control E. This time I've not selected the back face, and if I pull it down, the blue down arrow, it's going to create like a nice kind of beefy end to it. Okay, just going to give it a little bit more weight. So with that done, we're now going to do these parts here, which we're going to have like a magazine containing loads of bullets, or if it's a laser gun, I don't know, like some power source or energy source, it's kind of extracting that from. I'm going to push Control E. I'm going to go in and push the blue square to create the scale tool. Move us to the scale tool, sorry. There we go. I'm just going to bring that in a little bit. And I'm going to do the same on this side. Control E. And it's just going to give us that little bit extra control. In fact, actually, for this one, because we're not trying to create separate faces across the side here, we can actually do both at the same time. So if I select that face, just make sure it's definitely undone. And I push Control E, I can change this keep faces together off. And if I bring that in, we'll have two identical either side. Just Control E again. If we bring that in, we can then bring that up. Okay. So yeah, just want to kind of okay. So the next step that I'm going to do is bring in some more detailing on this. So with the insert edge loop tool over here, I'm going to bring in some parts like this, and we're just going to kind of break it up a little bit. So with the faces selected, go back into face view, I'm going to extrude this in like so, and This time I'm going to select these faces, push Control E and bring that up, push Control E, scale that in with that face. And you should be quite used to now developing these, producing these kind of hard edges and so on. And just adding these small details in is just gonna, if we make each side different, it's gonna make it feel a little bit more dynamic and less repetitive, which obviously nature and kind of life and objects are. They're all imperfect in one way or another, in one aspect or another. So with this one, I'm just going to Control E. So what I'm doing at this point is using the same tools that we've already used by using the scale tool through it and extrude. And it's just going to give us some variations on what we're doing. And it's going to feel more kind of bespoke in that sense of individualistic. So with all that kind of being done, I'm happy for you to kind of go ahead now and add in lots of details and kind of build your own gun up. You might want to use the cylinder tool to kind of add in a barrel piece. You might want to kind of go into vertex mode, and we can really bring out the get these vertices along the front here. And we can really kind of maybe bring that out a little bit. What we might need to do is rotate it around as well, kind of bring it out. We might need to just kind of bring that back a little bit, like so. And create a much more kind of intimidating front piece. Again, we just need to bring those out in line as well. If we go to the front view, we'll be able to see this from the side, which is a really weird thing to be saying from the front view to the side, but that's just how it is. So if I push F on the keyboard, it will focus whatever I have selected. So at the moment I've got a vertices selected, so it'll do that. If I go back to object mode and push F, it will bring it in. So if I go back to perspective, at this point our object has a lot of history, which could cause it to crash if we load it up, and we've got other values in here which we want at 0. So to do that, I'm going to go to modify freeze transformations, and then go to edit, delete by type, and go to history. Now that's all gone. So if I bring in the base, which is there, I'm just going to move the gun up, and I'm just going to move it across a little bit, and then I'm just going to go to edit. So I want to go all these to go back to 0. So I want to go to modify freeze transformations, and now I have a turret gun ready. Obviously, I want you to go ahead and add in more details. So to summarise, I've introduced you to the basic functions of Maya remodeling. So remember, we've got Q, W. So sorry if I go into the object. If I push Q, that's the select tool. W, which is the translate tool. Rotate, which is the E key, and the scale tool, which is the R key on the keyboard. We've also looked at extrusion modeling by going to edit mesh and going down to extrude, and the shortcut for that is Control E. Remember to create hard edges with inlets and extrusions in with a frame. You have to extrude twice, one to scale down the frame and then one to push in with the translate tools. And we've also introduced you to the insert edge loop tool. So you should now have some basic, and locating the poly modeling shelf and the poly models from the menu. Okay, I've introduced you to the channel box, how to kind of use these basic tools here, and obviously the inputs, which have now been removed because we froze the transformations as well. So with this, please go ahead and kind of create your own shapes, and I'd love to